if you're catching this when I'm recording it, this is the day before Epiphany. This is January 5th, but tomorrow is the day of Epiphany, January 6th. Now, last on my YouTube, my Journey of the Wave Walker you got last time, I asked some of you to look at the day of Epiphany and read Matthew chapter 2. Great passage to share about on the day of Epiphany. Epiphany always happens 12 days after Christmas. That's the day of Epiphany. And it's 25th is Christmas, okay. 12 days after is always going to be January 6th, and that's tomorrow. And now a great passage to look at. An Epiphany for some is a great big celebration like Christmas. Um, and a great passage to look at on Epiphany is Matthew chapter 2. It's the story of the Magi when they find the star. Now, they come from a long ways off, all the way off in the east. Some think they may have traveled some 900 miles to get there. And the wise men, the Magi, they've had scrolls. They studied and they're researching, and they heard about the prophecy of a great king being born. And when the star came on Jesus' birth, they started to follow the star. Now, by the time they got there, please understand this, even though we put them in the nativity scene, they probably didn't get to Jesus until Jesus was about 2 years old following the star. They're following the star. And now they they came to Jerusalem thinking, oh my gosh, he must be born in Jerusalem, big city, maybe in the palace, the king, you know. And he wasn't. They go to Herod, and there's a whole story about that. But they find out that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. They go to Bethlehem, which is about 10 miles away from Jerusalem. And they go, and they've been traveling a long time, you know. And they finally find Jesus in Matthew chapter 2. It says, in the home where Jesus was. Now, Jesus and Mary and Joseph are in a home now. Joseph's probably started this carpentry business. In the home, they go in and they see this little 2-year-old boy, little 2-year-old baby, and they had an epiphany. They knew this was the king. They saw Jesus and they worshiped him. That's what happens when you have an epiphany with Jesus. You want to worship him. Now, I asked some of you to do some homework and get back with me your thoughts on this. And 2 of you did. One was my sister, Joe. And Joe, good job, Joe. And I want to read to you what my sister Joanne said. This is kind of neat. Let me read it to you. She got back to me and said, my sister, and she goes, um, I cheated and checked to see what Google had to say about this. It gave me new insights. This is nothing that you probably don't know, but here's what Google said I found interesting. The Magi coming to worship Jesus, it was their mission to extend the whole world. And then Joanne will talk about, so they gave them the gifts. And one was a gift of gold, which is a gift for a king. You've heard this preached about. You've heard this shared about. But boy, I was glad Joanne saw this again too. And then they gave him gifts of frankincense. Now, frankincense was really it's kind of like a fragrance. It was gifts for a priest, really, to use. And so Jesus is King of Kings. Jesus is going to be, he's God, the priest of all priests, right? And he's God, you know. And then they give him myrrh, which is it's kind of an embalm. It's kind of an oil used in funeral preparations. Now I could see Joseph and Mary go, whoa, I could see you gold. That's good. I like that. Ooh, frankincense. Mary goes, oh, my son's going to be a priest. Oh. But myrrh, which is a symbol of that he's going to perform, he's going to live to do the ultimate sacrifice, to die on the cross. You're right, Joe. Great message. That's what many of us got out of that. And I probably will share that again. But my friend Steve Hilstein got back to now. When I was 18 years old, it was the first junior high group I started work with. I worked with many after that. Was at Hillside Baptist Church. And one of the junior hires, this is back in 1968, one of the junior hires was named Steve. And Steve also gets my help the chaplain, help the journey with the wave walker, watches my YouTube. And he got back with me. And I had to, this is what Steve had some other insights into this after reading Matthew chapter 2. Steve said, here you go, youth leader Johnny. He still called me his youth leader. Um, here's my epiphanies of Matthew chapter 2. Wise men, in parentheses, he said, and women, search for truth. You see that in verse 2. Evil tries to destroy the truth. Read that in verse 3. People with a heart of truth look for it in the world of God. See that in verse 5. Evil people will lie, cheat, and steal to get what they want. He reads that into 7 and 8. The act of humble giving honors those who receive the gift. Wow. Verse 11. Discernment comes from the Lord. And in 13, it's important to obey what God leads you to do. Wow. Great a message in Epiphany. Again, Epiphany, I think, is when we encounter Jesus, we have an epiphany. And all those things that Steve said, shared, yeah, that's true. But epiphany, when I encounter Jesus, I want to worship. I want to worship. Well, that was Matthew chapter 2. I want to do this again and invite all of you listening to this. Now I want you to do some homework for me. Look at Luke chapter 2. Go to Luke. And now you're going to read about another epiphany. Now, this epiphany in Luke chapter 2 takes place with a gal named Anna and a guy named Simeon. Read about them. And they have an epiphany with Jesus. Now, Jesus is really younger. He's only 8 days old when Mary and Joseph take him to Jerusalem. Read about what happens there. In fact, not only read about it, try to be there. Maybe be Anna. You're having this epiphany with Jesus. Look what it causes her to do and be and sing about. Anna and Simeon, who was a priest. Be the priest or be watching. See what happens to them. Get back with me and share with me what you observed with the epiphany of Anna with Simeon. Share with me the epiphany of what happened when they experienced Jesus. When you have an epiphany of Jesus, see how that might be your experience as well. Let me know. There's your homework. And if you get back, hey, I gave my sister Joanne and Steve A's. You get back with me on this. You don't have to write a lot. I'll give you an A too. I'm an easy greeter. Get back with me because maybe you're helping me not only share about that in a devotion, and I will next week, but you help me get into the devotion. Get into the scripture. You'll get into the devotion. You'll get into the story. And share with me your epiphany.